again, let me put this in perspective. How phenomenal this Wasp engine was. The Wright brothers, 1903. Charlie Taylor, their bicycle shop mechanic, made this engine. It was actually very, very advanced for its time. One of the first uses of cast aluminum for the crankcase. 14.2 pounds per horsepower. 17 horsepower when it started up. When it got hot, it went down to about 11, but it was good enough for that first flight, 120 feet. 1927, Spirit of St. Louis, that Whirlwind 5 we talked about from Wright Aeronautical, 2.9 pounds per horsepower. The Wasp engine, right out of the box, 1.6 pounds per horsepower. A quantum leap. This is a picture in April 1926 of the engine on one of the test planes for the U.S. Navy at Pax River. This happens to be the Wright Apache. In that first couple of weeks, there are numerous aviators from the Navy trying this thing out. They're all impressed. Takeoff roll, rate of climb, maneuverability. They're stunned. They're stunned. And with all these people trying it and testing it, the engine never needs any maintenance. So right away, the initial impressions, wonderful. Transition. 1924. Airmail has been popular for a while by the U.S. Postal Service. Old World War I planes, lots of crashes, mostly can't fly at night. Very difficult, just barely beating trains across the country. Airmail Act of 1925 says we're going to privatize, we're going to commercialize the airmail business. These are the 34 routes, and we're going to go bid them. And if you look at history, there's a lot of controversy of how this bidding happened. We don't need to go into that. But the premier route was cross-country. And the cross-country was divided into two major routes. This is the diamond in the gem, the diamond in the rough. This is the one that everybody wants to bid on. Chicago to San Francisco. Not an easy route. Flat, low altitude over the Midwest, over the Rockies when you come back, down Salt Lake City, you're at altitude, but you're down into kind of desert region, over the Sierra Nevadas, just before you come into San Francisco. There's a manufacturer, there's a president, William Boeing, in Seattle. He wants to get into the airmail business. Now is his chance. He's designed a Boeing Model 40, but he's forced to use an old Liberty water-cooled engine. He knows he can't be competitive with cost. He knows the reliability is very, very questionable. However, one of his Boeing airplanes was used at Pax River during those Navy tests, and for the first time he has, and some of his team has, some visibility into this new Wasp engine. He's amazed. Not only that, he takes a gamble. He redesigns his 40 into the Model 40A specifically around the Wasp engine. He's never met Frederick Rentschler. Very quickly goes to East Hartford, talks to Fred, and in 1926 gets permission from the U.S. Army Air Corps to carve out from the production schedule 25 engines for Boeing. With that, Boeing bid about half the cost per pound for the mail. So this is his Boeing. Yeah, it's there. And what I want you to call your attention to, there are two windows in here. The mail is stored in here, about 1,200 pounds, and two passengers. This is the first time a Boeing airplane can actually take two passengers. They have 24 planes. They need them by July 1927. They just make it. So Fred Rentschler helps build Boeing with this airmail contract, basically betting the company that the Wasp engine will work. It does work. From July 1927, in that 2-year period, with these 24 planes, and quite honestly, they made a couple more. They used the Hornet engine, a little upgrade from the Wasp engine. They moved 5.5 million pounds of mail, 13 tons of mail, 5.5 million miles with very little, there's one accident, very little maintenance, and 6,000 passengers over this very difficult route. I want to introduce you to the first commercial airline passenger for Boeing, Jane. Jane's a reporter. She wants in on the first flight from Chicago to San Francisco. It's not something we take lightly. All of my research says that the Boeing 40A has 2 cushions for passengers, never mentions heat or a restroom. So while Jane has a nice fur coat on for this photo, I think probably her aviation gear was a lot warmer. In 12 stops, 1,940 miles, 23 hours, Jane Eads becomes the first commercial passenger for Boeing. They eventually have a route. Here's the ticket. For $200, you can do what she did. It's interesting. So that's happening in the background. Okay, back to our story. Pratt engines are popular. You put a Pratt engine basically in anything. It's a world record, an altitude record, a speed record, a reliability record, a distance record. Military likes it. At the Capitol Ave plant in Hartford, the Wasp was introduced in 25, and the Hornet, a little bit bigger, about 125 horsepower bigger, about 300 cubic inches bigger. There's a lot of common parts going down the production line. Look at these production deliveries. Pratt Whitney engines are successful almost right out of the box. From 15 the first year till 1929, just over 2,000. 60% of the U.S. production for air-cooled engines, for aero engines. Here's a picture of those four founders with the 1,000th Wasp engine. 2 people missing. The tooling guy and the shop superintendent guy, right? You know. No time for pictures, we gotta push parts. Time to move. We're outgrowing Capitol Ave. In fact, the Pratt Whitney company, their business is changing. They want some space. They actually want Fred to leave. They buy 600 acres here in East Hartford and begin to move. 87 trolley cars full of machine tools, 215 tractor trailers. Within 6 months of Frederick Rentschler breaking ground, the first machine tool is up and running. $2 million project. Many of you remember this. If you go down 400 Main Street, that's the front. Carl, where's your first desk? My first desk is right here in Cement. But anyway. So, largest machine shop in the free world, largest aero engine plant. Meet my buddy Charles Mills. Why Charles Mills? This plant, huge. He's delivering blueprints. What I want you to look at is, he's on roller skates. And if you got a real good eye, the woodblock floors. There's no Pratt & Whitney employee that will ever not forget the woodblock floors, right? There's millions of woodblock floors. Keith and I often speculate woodblock floors are easier on your feet, they're easier for modifications. If you drop a part, not gonna dent it as much. But Charles Mills, roller skates. Carl Cruff story. Remember my buddy Walt? I just had 6 years of college, master's degree. Walt says, look, Carl, when you get lost in the factory, call me. Call me. I just had 6 years of college. Well, 3 weeks later, I didn't know where the flip I was. I had to call Walt. Walt, come and get me. He said, Carl, what column number you at? I told him. He said, what building number? What do you mean? There are multiple same column numbers and all building numbers. It's kind of like a Cape Cod house. You know, all these things have grown up. Walt has to come and get me. How embarrassing. But the plant is huge. By the time I start in 1973, the fires department is larger than my hometown in Attleboro. The photo department is bigger than the downtown place. It's just amazing. You stand at one end of the factory looking at well 10. One of the guys says, oh yeah, Carl, that's the curvature of the earth. You can't see the end. Well, it's not the curvature of the earth, but you could not see the end. So it's hard for you to, if you haven't been in there, just how big it is. And what I learned Many of this also has a basement, cafeterias, training rooms. Some of this has attics. I've been up them, where they store some parts. So not only is it just this square footage, but in some cases, it's got basements and attics. That bond between Fred Rentschler and William Boeing increases. They're both making very profitable. If you're in the aircraft business, you're buying Pratt engines. Fred Rentschler, Bill Boeing, and Chance Vaught want to form a corporation, United Aircraft and Transport. And they're going to, over the years, buy these companies and to form it into one big corporation. Their thought, technically correct, vertical integration. Make the propellers, make the engines, make the airframes, have the airlines. The airlines listed below, not only is it Boeing Air Transport, but there's some on the West Coast. They will all be combined into one nomenclature, United Airlines. 1934, Congress they're a little uncomfortable with this arrangement. It's in the middle of the Depression, but United Airport and Transport's making money. Something's gotta be wrong. They have Senate hearings. The company, the corporation is forced to break up. Everything basically east of the Mississippi becomes United Aircraft. Everything west of the Mississippi becomes Boeing Aircraft. And the companies in italics come to United Aircraft. Bill Boeing is so alienated by this event, he never, except for a short period in World War II, he never goes back to work again. The Wasp engine, phenomenal. These are just some of the things you could pick up twice as many. Charles Lindbergh has the coast-to-coast record with one stop in 1930. The Granville brothers, the R1 racer, out of Springfield. Jimmy Doolittle, 1932. Level speed record, 298 miles an hour. Plane is beautiful, almost at the verge of instability. Very difficult to fly, but man, what a trip. Wiley Post, in a Lockheed commercial aircraft, the Vega, is the first person to have solo around the world. 7 stops, 14 days. At the National Air Races, the meet of the year, at the unlimited class racers, usually at the end, the Thompson Trophy, Pratt-powered aircraft win 8 of the 11 races up to World War II. This engine is amazing. This technology is phenomenal. One of the most famous, and we've talked about her a little bit, is Amelia Earhart. This is the part Keith likes because he's from Purdue University, so I gotta do it. Amelia Earhart is actually an employee at Purdue University. She's in the career counseling. And Purdue University actually purchases the plane she used to go around the world. So in 1937, 21,000 miles, successful, engines good, aircraft good. It's the next to the last stop, the furthest over water. She's lost forever, or lost at least until now. So Amelia Earhart, the most famous woman in the world. If you're a Pratt Whitney mechanic and back in those days, this is your pinup calendar. Amelia Earhart, a Hamilton Standard propeller, and a Wasp engine. Oh, baby. The war years are coming. We don't want to get into World War II. It's over there. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt has a plan. We are not going to get into the war. We are going to provide material for those who are. They're going to lease them, just like good neighbors. Here, take this, and when you're done, pay me back. Yeah. FDR has a bold challenge. Here he is in East Hartford looking at propellers and engines. Our total Air Corps force at this time was 1,200 engines. FDR asks for 50,000 planes a year. What? That's more planes than we've ever made since the Wright brothers. And that's what you want per year. That was his goal. He knew the storm clouds were coming. We needed the auto boys. We needed the auto guys. They were reluctant at first. Read the stories. Ford Motor Company, no way, says old man Ford. Edsel Ford has a little bit different. They eventually convince him to, it's an easy convince, right? Stop all your car manufacturing. Trust me. Make this stuff, trust me. I can't imagine the nights that he thought about that. So here's Fred Rentschler with Edsel Ford. They will make, Ford Motor Company will make 50,000 double Wasp engines in World War II for us. Once they get the tolerances down, they have great machine shops, they pound these things out. God bless the auto guys, the arsenal of democracy. This is more like the Pratt Whitney we remember. At the height of World War II, 40,000 people are showing up every day. We've got 1,100 acres. That runway in the back has been expanded to 9,000 feet, 6 million square feet. Things are humming. Actually, where the engineering building is today on the far extreme right-hand side is Hamilton Standard. They will leave the campus in 1952. Not as well known, Pratt Whitney, Kansas City, Missouri, also comes up with a plan. In 2.5 years, they go from first shovel in the ground to ending operations. They make just shy of 8,000 double Wasps, 3 million square feet, 22,000 employees. What does high production look like? That's what it looks like. There I am in 1940 looking for a QR ticket on Silverhead 704, 718. Those are twin Wasp cylinder heads. If you do the math, in East Hartford alone, there's probably 1.5 million cylinder heads that need to be done. And these are not easy parts. Split cases, literally and figuratively piled to the ceiling. Double Wasp engines, final assembly, out in Missouri. These numbers are impossible to think about from my career.